guys, Doc here. You know, have you ever gone to a restaurant and wondered, how do your parents know, or how do people know, or how does anyone know how to leave a tip and how much that tip is? And you know, now it's not as big as an issue because they do have the little automatic tip counters that are on display that you can just say, yeah, just add 20%, just add 15%. But I always like to know, where's my money going? It's important for us to be responsible with our money. It's good to give, but it's also good to be responsible with your money. So, I thought today we would talk about a quick way that you can figure out how much tip to leave. And maybe you can even share this with others so that you can give them some help and give them an idea of how to do it quickly. Okay, so let's say we went to a pizza shop. Okay, so we went to the pizza shop. Oh, I guess you can't see up there. Let me move it down a little bit. We go to a pizza shop. And let's say we order pizza. We're there sitting down at a sit-down restaurant. That's usually where you leave a tip. And you get a bill before you leave the restaurant. Your pizza and your drinks and everything totals to, let's say, $31.29. And you look at that and you're like, how do I know what tip to leave? That's a pretty confusing number. Well, there's an easy way that you can figure that out. First of all, if you came home and I said, hey, how much did you guys spend at the pizza shop? You probably wouldn't say, well, $31.29. You probably would say about $30. So that's the first thing that you do when you look at your number. What's it close to? I call it friendly numbers. So what friendly number can you change that to? So my friendly number, and just think of it that way. If somebody asked me how much I spent, I would say I spent about $30. Okay? Now, it is good practice nowadays to leave a 20% tip. You can leave less, but usually if your service is good, your waitresses are good, then you want to leave a 20% tip. Because waitresses really don't make a lot, and it's very helpful to leave them a proper tip. So, how do we figure out what 20% of this is? Well, I'm going to show you a really easy way to do that. You take your friendly number, and you move your decimal over once. So instead of 30, it's now 3. Okay? 3 is actually means 10% of what you spent. So 3 is 10%. And you don't have to write all that down when you're doing it. I just want you to understand where this is coming from. And we'll do it quicker later. So I just take my 30, I move my decimal back once, and I have 3. Now if 3 is 10%, 10% times 2 would be 20%. So if 10% times 2 is 20%, I just take my 3 and I multiply it by 2, and that's how much tip I should leave, $6. Okay? Now let's practice a little bit. Well, before we practice, let's actually go back and we'll review this. So in summary, you go to a pizza shop, your bill comes out to $31.29. You think, about how much is that? It's about $30. It's a little more than 30, but it's around $30. So I move my decimal over once, that's 3, and then I multiply it by 2, and that'll give me 20%. And that's it. It's easy. So let's try another. Let's say you go to another sit-down restaurant, and again, you leave a tip in situations where you have a waitress or somebody cleaning up after you generally. So you go to a restaurant and you have a bill of about $19.95. Oh, I'll move it down a little bit again. I keep writing too high. $19.95. So I look at that and I say $19.95. When I look at that, I say that's close to $20. So you're going to say, well, that's about $20. So now we need to figure out what 20% of that would be. So 10% of $20 would be just moving the decimal back once, and that would just be $2. So 20% of $20, sorry. Put our little dollar signs in here. Would be 2 times 2, which is 4. So if 10% is $2, 20% I want to multiply by 2. Why am I multiplying by 2? Once again, 10 times 2 is 20. Since 10 times 2 is 20, then we take the 2 that we got and we multiply it by 2 to get our tip of $4. Okay? Now let's say we're going to go out, we're going to the prom, and there's a whole group of us going, and we go out to a really nice restaurant somewhere, and then we get our restaurant bill, and our bill this time is $112. Now, gentlemen, when you take your dates to the prom, normally when you look at this, you don't want to be like, I don't know what tip to leave. Or ladies, if you're taking your date to a prom, then you don't want to look at this and say, I don't know what tip to leave. So, let's figure out how you can do that without even having to pull out your calculator on your phone. You take your $112 and you say, well, that's pretty close to $110. So we're going to actually look at 110. Now what we're doing is just rounding. You've probably rounded numbers in school before. Okay, so but we're just picking a friendly number. Does it matter that I say I spent $112 at dinner? Or you could say I spent about $110 at dinner. So that $110, 10% of 110 is, what do you think? Move your decimal back one. It's $11. $11. So again, find my friendly number. I'll even put a smiley here for my friendly number. Take that 0 back and it's $11. Now, you tell me in the chat, what do I do next to find my 20%? I'm going to take my 11 times 2 and I get $22. So you're going to want to give your waitress a $22 tip before you leave from that nice dinner. Okay? All right. Let's try another. Let's say you and some friends, or you and a friend, decide to go somewhere for fancy milkshakes. So we're out for fancy milkshakes, and we get the bill, restaurant bill, of $8.50. $8.50. Well, it can be kind of confusing when you start having the decimals in here. But what would you use usually to pay that $8.50? You would probably pay with a $10 bill. So I would choose my friendly number of $10. Okay? So notice this time I didn't really round to 9. You could But when the number is small like that, you might want to round to a little bigger number like 10. So 10% of 10 is $1. Okay? And if I take 20% of 10 is that 1 times 2, because I'm multiplying it by 2 to get $2. So you would leave $2 for tip. Okay, we're doing pretty good. Let's try a hard one. Let's try one where we actually have to make a decision. It's good to learn to make good decisions, especially when it comes to your money. Well, actually, it's always good to make good decisions. And it's good to think about your decisions. So, let's practice that. Let's say we have a bill of $35. We went out for some chicken and we get a bill for $35. So we got chicken sandwiches, fries, and a Coke. And we want to figure out what the tip is, because we're not at a fast food restaurant. You don't tip when you go to fast food. We're at a restaurant where you sit down and the waitresses are coming to wait on you. That's when you leave a tip. Okay, so here's my question. Do I say it's close to $30? Or do I say it's close to $40? Now, some people might say, well, I'm going to put $30 because it's going to be a little less money for a tip. And that would probably still be around in the 15% range or so, so it wouldn't be too bad. However, I will tell you that your waitresses usually do work really hard, and it's not an easy job. So my preference is always to round up and to go to the $40. Okay? So I would say $40. So we have 10% of $40 is, how much is it? Put it in the chat. I'm waiting to see your answers. Okay, we moved our decimal back 1 and we got $4. So now I want to look at my 20%. And that's going to be my 4 times 2, and I'm going to leave an $8 tip. Now, if I would have picked the 30, can you tell me if I would have picked the 30, how much tip it would be? Go ahead and put your answer in the chat. If I would have picked the 30 and I move my decimal back 1, I get 3. And 3 times 2 is 6. So between $6 and $8 is the tip that I should leave. I usually round up, and I would go with the $8. Okay, now let's do some together. I want you to do some and put your answers for me. We're going to do 3 of them. $29.50 is our first bill. $16 is our second bill. And our third bill is $96.30. Okay, now take a minute, pause the video, and I want you to do those problems, and then we'll check and see how it's done. So we're going to pause the video right now, and if you're watching from YouTube, you pause the video, work them out, and then see if you got the answers correct. Okay, let's see how we did. This one, I would say my friendly number is $30. I go 10%. 10%, I just move my decimal back once, and I get $3. And I keep writing a little bit off the screen. I want to make sure you can see it. $3. And then if I multiply that by 2, I'll get my 20%, $6. So you can see how easy that is now. I have my $30, which was my friendly number from my bill. Move back my decimal, I get 3, and then multiply by 2. And that's it. Let's try another. The $16. Let's see what you did there. Now, you might have left it 16, but I would have moved it to 20. $20, move the decimal back once, you get 2, and then multiply it by 2, you get a $4 tip. So, I wonder if you got the $4 tip. If you did, let me know in the chat. And finally, number 3, we have $96.30. I would round that to $100. That's a pretty big dinner. So you might have a family dinner, take the family out to dinner, and it's $100. Now you're going to move your decimal back once, and that would give me $10. Now remember, we're not done there. We still have to multiply by 2 to get our 20%. So we're going to want to make sure we leave a $20 tip. So I hope that was helpful for you today, and easy math that you can do without a calculator. And not only is it fun to do, and it's also fun for people to see how smart you are when you do it. So this is Doc signing off. I'll see you next time. Peace out.